Yes, welcome. This is A RAP CRITIC. I'm your boy Malik 16. And no, I'm not the newest member of the bad boy team, but I'm here for a very, very, very special episode. This is the super duper Harlem edition of A RAP CRITIC. And we had to do this the right way, so I brought in two Harlem native Harlemites, Harlem experts, Harlem pros, but the twist is from two different generations. So it's the 25th anniversary of the highly debatable classic Harlem World by Mace, representing where all three of us come from. My first guest is her first time on the show. She's dope. She's a Renaissance woman. She does a whole bunch. I'm gonna give her the mic. Who you be?
So I'm Samone, a.k.a. Iconic Glow. I am from Harlem. I am a New York native, New Yorker to my core, and I'm just here to school young Nephew on what's going on with this album here.
That's exactly what I was hoping. But can you tell them a little bit about what you do, some of the stuff you got going on?
I host a show called Go Live with Glow, which is centered around basically just giving flowers to our successful Black people in all different areas. I've had Malik come on and do my show. I've had some great guests. It's right now we're on hiatus, so I'm on hiatus for a little while, but we will be hopefully filming in January. So please be on the lookout for it.
Yep. And I had to pull her out while it's a low season, because when she's busy and the schedule is locked, she's a hard woman to get a hold of, and she's fresh off homecoming tour. I know. Yo, shout out to Howard. Shout out to the real H.
Really? You better stop that.
Yo, I was so mad I couldn't be at homecoming, but one person I know never misses hers.
It's mine. I don't never miss my homecoming. I don't care. I could be almost dead. I'm rolling in there in the hospital bed.
Yo, it's real. Nobody, and I still have yet to go to your campus. Can you shout your school out to people?
Well, I am a Morgan State bear to the heart, the core, MSU all day, every day. I am a Morgan State alumni. I graduated from the business building. So I have a bachelor's in business marketing from Morgan State University. So I went to the Earl Graves Business School at Morgan State University.
Wow, Earl Graves. That's
you gotta get a shout out, and the shout out deserves it, okay?
That's so
I am how many years removed from school? I graduated school 2007, so where am I at? 15 years.
Wow.
15-year alumni, and I've never missed a homecoming. The only homecoming I missed was during COVID, because literally there was nothing going on. And even still, I thought about just kind of showing up to campus and walking around with nobody there.
With the colors on, right?
Just walk around, because I've never missed a homecoming before in my life. So yes, I am an HBCU alumni, Morgan State University to the death of me.
Now, this is such an important convo to have, because my nephew was in that so important phase where he's got to do all his college applications. And I don't think this young man has one HBCU on his list. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, why not? Why not?
Oh, no, I do.
What schools you got
Which
on
one?
there?
So far, Morgan State.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
happy you said it first.
Yeah. And then I have Delaware State now because they have my major.
Okay, so my next guest, y'all know him. He should be no stranger to the channel, no stranger to any of you all. But if you're new, this is your first introduction to Nephew. I'm gonna let you know about himself. Who you be?
Hey, I'm Ramel. I'm from Harlem. You feel me? And this is my 4th episode.
Yep.
Yeah. And we about to review Mace's album.
They say you feel me for me. You feel me? I'm from Harlem. You feel me? Just know after you say that, listen, as you go on your journey, you get ready to go to college and everything, if people ask you from where you from, once you say New York, that should be the end of the conversation. We shouldn't even be continuing no more conversations after that.
Don't tell them that. Don't have them.
No, I'm serious. Once I say I'm from New
York,
York, I don't want to hear where you from. I don't even care. I don't care.
Let me make it clear. We are not very loved outside of our little tri-state.
That's why that's the end of the conversation here. Because anytime you meet somebody that I'm from New Jersey, that's not the same thing. But carry on.
You gotta rep New York right when you go out of these states.
is. You feel me? He said, you feel me? He already on that type of time.
So we're going to get into it. This is category 1, where we go over the product, the album itself. This was the very first solo release after the death of the Notorious B.I.G. and is released on October 28th, 1997. And it was a pretty big deal when it came out. We're going to get into all of that. First dimension that we go over in category 1 is dimension 1, the quality of the production. So who we got producing on here? At this point in time, Diddy had formed his crew known as the Hitmen, which was a collective of producers signed under Bad Boy, who all were kind of young and up and coming at the point in time. And so some names have gone on to ring bells. You might be really familiar with them. It's a mix of like older and newer producers who had contributed to Bad Boy projects previously. And so you had producers like Ron Amin-Ra Lawrence, and I think the signature style for him is you're gonna hear more of the like glittery beats that Bad Boy is known for from him. And the other
Don't forget Stevie J.
I was just about to say, that's the other person that added that glitter, mostly on the piano end. And your darker spectrum of the Bad Boy producers are, you know, two my personal favorites, Carlos Brody and Nasheem Merrick. And I might be saying both of their names wrong, but y'all know who they are. Y'all check all the credits, all of like the cinematic Bad Boy production, and you're probably gonna see their names. And in the middle of both of those is gonna be Derek D. Angeletti, a.k.a. the Mad Rapper, and they're all contributing to the different vibes of this album. And then, you know, of course, Diddy has some credits on here himself. That's something to take into account, whether you believe Diddy actually produces or not.
I feel like Diddy was more so like, I feel like he was like in charge of operations. Like as far as like producing music like that, like I've never really seen Diddy for real, like move any of the buttons on a keyboard, like on the keyboard or any of that. Anytime I've ever seen him in the studio, I've never seen him move any of the knobs or any of the volume or anything. Like he just has an ear, like, you know what I mean? He just has an ear for what it should sound like. But like everybody, he controls everybody around him as far as like what he wants it to sound like. So I guess it was like, what is that? Like, you know, what is that? Conductor? Like, I don't know.
We talked about Diddy many times on the channel already, and especially when we went over the No Way Out album, we talked about this idea of, can you still be a producer if you contribute to the final product of the beat arrangement? And Diddy is more of an arranger than anything else. And they've said he's come to the studio with the sample ideas before. And I truly believe that on the very last track, on Jealous Guy, where they remake the New Edition classic, I totally believe that's all Diddy. I think he came with it.
I think he sampled a lot of, you can hear a lot of Diddy and a lot of this, like a lot of his first album, you hear a lot of Diddy, especially because he is an R&B dude.
Yeah. And
he's more of an R&B dude.
And like me, he's like an original New Edition fan, day one stand level for them. So you knew bringing that song was his idea. Hey, let's just get drunk and have fun and let's just sing this song even though we can't sing. Let's do that.
Right.
And, you know, I could see him just doing that because it didn't take a lot of effort to sample. Now, you get other samples all throughout this album because that had become Bad Boy's penchant. By this time, they had branded themselves as, I think Diddy even says it on the first single, Feel So Good. He's like, take hits from the 80s, yeah, but make it sound so crazy. So you getting things sampled, like big samples, because Diddy had the money to pay for this. We talked about that too. So you're getting stuff like Hollywood Swinging by Kool and the Gang. I know paychecks were probably going everywhere, because not only are they sampling the beat from one song, they'll sample the hook from another. On Love You So, he's sampling Square Biz by Tina Marie, but singing Rolls Royce, ooh boy, I love you so. And he does the same thing on Feel So Good, because that hook is from another 80s song, that bad. So they got money. They have money to blow, and we're not even talking about the lighter samples, stuff like 24 Hours to Live. There's a sample portion on that beat. I'm actually impressed by how much sampling they didn't do on this album. I'd say maybe 65% of the album is sampled.
That's a lot.
The original production here, you get a probably a better amount of original production than on a lot of the Bad Boy albums that year. So songs like Take What's Yours and the Dame Grease production, the song with Busta Rhymes, that's original. And so is I Need to Be, which I think Chucky Thompson contributed to.
Wasn't the Neptunes one of the producers?
I want to go on record saying this. Like, Neptunes had been around for a while. They were mostly doing R&B stuff. I gotta say, Mace's Why Are You Over There Looking at Me is the first hip-hop track I recall Neptunes as a production unit being on. Because we know Pharrell had been working with Teddy Riley for years before.
Right.
SWV stuff, they were doing Total's album, but this was the first hip-hop song. And it was a single. And, you know, Nori takes credit because I think Super Thug really let people know who Pharrell was, but Neptune's been working. But yeah.
This is for Pharrell, who he was. So a lot of times, a lot of people were taking music from the Neptunes back then, and they really wasn't getting the credit that they deserved. That's for sure.
So you get a healthy amount of original production on here. You can tell Diddy's hand was all over this, but he still eased back on some tracks.
Okay.
This is all something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. So from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Samone, what would you give the quality of the production on here?
For his first album, you said 1 to 5, right?
Yep. For the production, meaning if you listen to this today, can you still get with the beats on this album?
I'm gonna give it a 4. I still feel like I got a lot of bangers. Like when certain beats drop, I'm sitting, I'm put my drink down. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna move wherever I'm at, and I'm going to go dance to the dance floor.
Okay.
It's a 4.
Ramel, what you giving this?
Same thing, a 4. Because you got beats like Feel So Good, which is just iconic and stuff like that, you know. So I'm giving it a 4.
Even though that's just a straight rip from Kool and the Gang, you just think it's still top-notch production?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, because you can't even, because you forget who really sung that song when you hear Mace on it. You only think of Mace when you hear that beat. You can't think about somebody else. You only think of Mace when you hear that. I only think of Mace. Who? I don't know. Mace. That's true. Mace joint.
It's true. When I hear the horns, I'm always waiting for party people.
Yes, you ready to do the dance, aren't you? You ready to come out, aren't you?
Okay. So that takes us to Dimension 2. And we talk about the cohesiveness of the album. And I think Samone was touching on this just a second ago. How well does it all go together? It's one thing to have a bunch of producers. We got everybody on there from Chucky Thompson to Dame Grease to the Neptunes, but does it work well together? And so I talked about Diddy's Hitman clique and how they all kind of knew their roles. You had your more poppy sounding producers, and then you had your darker producers, and in the middle you got some outside contributors. Do y'all feel like it all works well on this album? It's a pretty long album. This is the beginning of the era of us going into long number albums. So does all the production flow together for y'all?
Listening to it now in my old ears versus my younger ears, I'm gonna say it's not as cohesive as it should be. It's just, it sounds like a bunch of songs, a bunch of different songs. Like nowadays, an album tells a story. This album didn't tell a story. It gave us a bunch of different feels. Like we're going up and down. Like we're going up and down throughout the whole album. Like nobody has an album with that many interludes like that. But that was the thing back there, right? Like the phone conversation interlude is classic to this day. That phone conversation interlude, Who is Ariane, will never ever get played out for me in my mind. However, nowadays you can literally tell a story with an album. It's doing more storytelling than kind of just getting a couple of great songs.
Man, you on fire with this point. I think I couldn't have said it better myself. And one thing that you made mention of is the interludes or the skits. And this is another thing that was really popular in the mid-90s, is like flooding your album with hella skits. And people don't think about how these will last the test of time. I think skits are one-time kind of thing, unless they're like classic or something that just is really relevant to the album story. But Samone just pointed out, it's not really telling a story. It's more like, it could have been a mixtape, right? And the skits, there's no less than 5 skits, and they're not short. You got whole phone calls, you got mad rapper skits, you got a lot of skits on here.
5.
They
it's
are
like
5
interludes, which could have been just 15 songs. We could have did without those 5 interludes.
Yeah. It'd be different if they like directly led into the songs, but sometimes it's just randomness.
Always over the album.
Yeah. So I know you were saying there's one skit that will never get old for you.
The phone conversation when he clicking over between both girls is Ariane. Who is Ariane? He said Lisa. Who is Lisa? Oh, since you call her names, I really wanted to fuck with Puff, but he didn't show up to the club that night. That resonates so much. Just like, that's timeless. Can you imagine being in the 90s and you see Mace, like they like, oh yeah, Puffy and Mace is coming to the club. Think about the tunnel. Think about the era that was in, like where like people in the industry were like partying. Well, people in the industry party with locals every now and again too. They're more accessible than they were, but at that little point right there, it's like I really wanted to fuck with him, but he didn't come to the club that night. Like only you showed up, so I
and we talking about the days of like call, wait, and click over.
He messed up, right? So that's why it's funny, because I said it's timeless, because if you remember having call waiting, first of all, you had to have money to have call waiting. Second of all, you had to be careful on call waiting too, because you could mess up and say the wrong name. And he said the wrong name twice.
Got you. All right, I'll give you that. As far as that might be in the timeless conversation, because that's also where we get the classic line. I just said that to get you mad, right?
Exactly.
And so that's gone and lived on through time. And maybe you could throw the mad rapper in there too, because that's grown an identity of its own. Like that's become iconic. How y'all feel about Diddy doing the intro? We don't hear Mace's voice at all on the intro. How do y'all feel about that?
So this is the thing with Diddy, right? So there's been so much controversy between Diddy really being from Harlem and Diddy being from Vernon, for real. I think that Diddy glorified Harlem so much, right? He glorifies being from Harlem, and I think that he truly wanted to be from here. So like that introduction sounds like his love letter to Harlem more than anything.
Yes. Yo, you taking the words out of my mouth. Ramel, you got any feelings?
I feel like in the intro it's kind of good because he also it's kind of like a boxing match. Like he's also introducing Mace on the intro too.
Right.
Like 145th. This is the person who they call Mace. Like he's also introducing him on the album too.
Right.
So I feel like that was good to put him in the intro.
I love how you gave
I would like
him.
to highlight like 2 things. So like both me and Mace are from Jacksonville, Florida. We were born there and then we moved to Harlem. I just want to clarify that before we go there. I always say this is like my big cousin. I'm the real Mace because me and Mace both was born there and then moved to Harlem. And like you cannot tell me that I'm not from Harlem because I am.
That's so crazy.
How many family members I got in Jacksonville? I'm from Harlem.
Yo.
Like
nobody can tell me I don't know how to pick my guests. I didn't even know that about you, and here we are.
Me and Mace are both born in Jacksonville, Florida, and we both moved to Harlem like as children.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, so I mean, y'all just gave 2 like really beautiful takes on Diddy's intro that, you know, I think another way to look at it is more that thing that Diddy is controversially infamous for, being all in the video, all in the song, right? It's like we've heard about the stories of Diddy coming in after songs were done and inserting himself on it. Like, oh, I'm gonna do your intro, you didn't even know about it. So you can take those all kinds of ways, but they exist. And I think those 3 skits become iconic because they did have some identity to them. The other skits, the phone call to the white girl or the threatening phone call, we heard that on Biggie's album with the threatening phone call. So it's like we didn't really need that many to break it up. And I think that adds to that whole feeling that Samone pointed out of it just sounding like a bunch of songs instead of an album that tells a story. Production wise, I'd say you get a good balance of those darker beats and the glitzy beats. It's not overwhelmingly glitzy, surprisingly. I think most people expected Mace's whole album to sound like Feel So Good and Love You So, but then you get to like Take What's Yours right off the bat, and it's like, oh, okay, this is raw enough for DMX to be on it and sound natural. You got to see different sides of Mace. So it's something to consider on the scale from 1 to 5. What we giving this? 1 to 5, Mo?
Cohesiveness, I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay. Ramel?
I'm gonna give it a 3 also, because like she said, there's songs everywhere on this album. They're just spread around. The only 2 songs that go good back to back is Do You Want to Get Money and Take What's Yours. Because after that you go from Love You So to The Player Way.
Yeah.
2 songs that are completely different. So yeah, there's songs everywhere on this album.
Good point. That takes us to number 3, since we've been talking about the thematic elements. Dimension 3, intentional mood or tone. Do y'all feel like there was a mood and tone to this album?
Overall?
I don't. Just don't move to it.
I would say if there was any like repeated theme that shows up a couple times, it's this idea that Bad Boy is now on my back. I'm Mace and I'm carrying the label. So he mentions Notorious B.I.G. on the first 2 tracks. So on You Want to Get This Money and Take What's Yours, he says on the last verse, You Want to Get This Money, he's like, the moral of the story is I'm not here to replace Notorious. But then on the next song, Take What's Yours, he's like, I'm gonna take it where Biggie did. So he knows that Bad Boy is on his shoulders. Like, as much as Diddy's album was a big monster hit, summer smash album, that was also Diddy introducing his new lineup. Everybody was on it. It was The Lox, it's Black Rob, it's Mace, and Biggie was on it. And because Mace doesn't have any features from Biggie here, he's like, I can't even use any of the tricks. This is all me. It's up to me. So I do hear that sentiment. I feel like it's we're gonna try to continue the magic without our star player. Here's our other star. It's like if LeBron left the Heat and they were trying to make D-Wade as big as LeBron. It's like, okay, the team is still the winning team. Or do you have a better basketball reference I can compare that to, Ramel?
No, that's a good one.
Okay.
They just losing Biggie at the time, and they're trying to find the next star, the next come up, and they looked at Mace for that.
I'll do a more recent example. The Warriors. Basically, when Durant left, they had a lot of questions. Can they hold it down? Can it just be the Splash Brothers and Draymond? And they proved we still rocking. So Steph Curry might have been like the Mace, and Durant was the Biggie. I don't know if that makes sense, but I do hear that.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Like he had a lot of pressure on him to go ahead and push that album out. They needed another star player. They lost their star player.
The other undercurrent here, it may not be as obvious to everyone because it doesn't even seem like the first thing I pointed out was really obvious. But there's this point that Mace wants to make, and he makes it on as many songs as possible, especially the darker ones, to remind you that he was Murder Mace before he decided to get this money on Bad Boy. He has lines all throughout the album. Like I think on You Wanna Hurt Mace, he was just like, I spent years rapping this way, got with Diddy, switched it up, and now I'm getting this money. And then on Looking at Me, he even says the line, I was murder. P. Diddy made me pretty, did it for the money, now can you get... So he's always kind of being conscious to remind you that he has like these killer lyrics, and he's bragging a lot about how he can get you got. He got people all over Harlem. He's from the streets. He used to rap this way. He's only rapping this way to make the money because money's more important than anything. So I get that message a lot, and I think this is a really important theme throughout the album because this is the part that I couldn't understand when I was Ramel's age. When I was in high school and this album came out, and I saw grown men from Harlem who was like, yo, Mace is nasty, he's killing it, he's that dude. I was like, y'all like this slow rapping, slow talking? And it's because they were living off of that legend of Mason. They're like, nah, you don't understand. He's nasty on the mic. Listen to what he says. So I think
they knew him from Manhattan Center, though. They knew Manhattan Center Maze. Like, we didn't get that. We got industry Maze.
Right. I'm from Edgecombe. I'm from Douglas and 7th. So like, I was just kind of out of that. And so that's something to consider too, that he's making this point to remind you who he was and who he's fixing to be. And I think that's one of the themes. So you got the Bad Boy on My Back and you got the Murder Mace versus Pretty Mace. And that's about the closest you get to any kind of like, all of that is just something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. What we giving this from 1 to 5 when we talk about the mood and tone?
Another 3.
Okay. Rebel?
3, just because off of the mood.
Okay.
Then yeah,
all right.
3. Yeah.
So that takes us to dimension 4. The song distinction versus the repetition of words and sounds. So how much is Mace saying the same words? How much are the beats sounding the same? Do we hear a lot of repetition? Or did you hear songs on here where you're like, oh, this sounds like that song?
No. And that's something to keep in mind.
When we talk about word repetition, it's usually like, can you tell there was a laziness? They're saying the same kinds of words. They're saying the same kinds of things. I notice he does talk a lot about his car preferences. He will be like, I'm not driving it if it doesn't have TVs in it, or I was gonna get the Hummer, but I'll just get the Bubble Eye. He does like Sadiddy car talk. But that's about as far as he mentions Bad Boy, he mentions Harlem a lot, but that goes with the territory. He's branding those ideas in your head because he wants you to know this is what he's repping. But I never at any point felt like Mace ran out of words. Like, oh, didn't he just say this? He's saying the same things, but with different words. I be the young.
To visualize what Harlem really looks like for those that didn't live there, because at the time when his album dropped, there was no crossover the way it is now. We didn't know about any music down south, and nobody down south knew about no music up here.
Yeah, it was
and
really.
Having to get your hands on this album, he was trying to give you a visualization of what Harlem really felt like.
You think so?
You think of 125th Street, summertime. Go by 125th Street, the Mart, summer 97. You go by, they got the cars. They got the cars outside.
I would agree with you if he did that. Now, one thing I can say as far as repping Harlem, Mace did not talk about Harlem as a day-to-day life kind of thing. I got no descriptions of Harlem from Mace. Cam, it wasn't until Cam's first album where I got ideas of what Harlem looks like. Mace was talking about yachts and mansions. He was not talking. He said Harlem.
He was talking. I guess he was talking more so where what he was doing now with his money, not so more about Harlem.
Yeah, Mace made no references to actual Harlem at the time. No Willie Burger, nothing. He might have said Branson, but that's it. Like.
That what Uncle Malik said, that is true, because there is nothing about Harlem. The only thing you hear about Harlem is the intro when Diddy is naming all the streets. Right. That's really it.
You would have thought that
maybe he was giving more sort of Harlem persona, because a lot of us are just that.
There you go. Okay.
Like, when you're from Harlem, this is the persona that this is what it's like to be in Harlem. Like, if you're not out here, if you're not flossing, if you're not fronting, if you're not pretending like you got it when you don't, it's like, what do we even do? Where are you really from?
I mean, yeah, but the difference is he really has it. So that's why he talks about that more than
there's still black people in Harlem. But that's the thing. I'm gonna pretend like I got it, even though I don't got it.
I think you just hit it on. You put it that way, Samone, then I'm in agreement. Like, he captured the Harlem persona. I just wish he would have done more Harlem repping, like take you into Harlem for an album called Harlem World. But something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. Repetition and distinction. What you giving this, Samone? 1 to 5.
I'm gonna give it a 4.
A 4. Okay. Ramel?
A 4.
You just gonna keep saying whatever Samone says.
No.
True teen, man. All right, that takes us to dimension 5, the amount of songs versus the amount of content. And when we talk about content, we mean how much is Mace actually talking about something with substance on here compared to the amount of songs. out of 20 songs, there's maybe 3 or 4 where he's actually talking about something.
Right.
This is a floss album.
It's very, very much like, I have money, I'm wealthy, I'm famous, I'm getting this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm riding around with the TVs and the headrests. Like, I am really out here, I'm making money. But I think that had more so, again, to do with more so what Diddy was trying to personify, more so than what Mace was. Because Mace is really talking about getting it out the mud, grinding, this, that, and the third. But then when he got with Diddy, it was like, I want to personify luxury. Like, that's his thing, luxury, living. I wanted wealth, all those different things like that. So
I feel like for this, it's really more of Puff to blame because he's been doing this for a while. So I feel like he could have set the album up more to like, okay, we're going to make them feel this in the first half and then they're going to feel this because it's 20 songs.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done that instead of just throwing songs anywhere.
They could have done a day and night album, like a softer side and then a hardcore side.
Yeah.
I hate that though. I feel like you got to blend it to tell a story. It's just
not really. You can do a day and night album. You can give something for the ladies, something for the fellas. You can
if you're not going to at least tell a story, you can at least do that.
You could have gave us 10 hardcore songs that told one story. Like, I'm a lover, but I'm a fighter. You could have did I'm a lover. You could have gave all the ladies what they needed. Tell me what you want. You could have gave like what you want. You could have gave all of that. All of that. And then you could have gave us all of the extra stuff because it seems like on a lot of Mace, like mixtapes, different type of music he put out after that, he raps a lot faster, he raps a lot hardcore, he raps real hard on a lot of those beats.
But the only song I could think of is 24 Hours to Live, where he's asking, what would you do with your last 24 hours?
Yeah.
So that's
there's moments like the way he talks about women, you're going to get at least focus subjects, but, it doesn't go any further than those songs you mentioned. So these are all things to consider on the scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Samone, what you giving is for the ratio of content and amount of songs?
I'm gonna give it a 2.
A 2. Our first 2. All right, Ramel.
A 1.
Woo!
Damn.
Low. All right, that takes us to
What?
It takes us to Dimension 6, the features. Who we got on this album?
Ooh.
All right, so we got DMX, we got Billy Lawrence, we got 8Ball and MJG. First of all, nobody was even putting on these type of people on their records at all. We got Busta Rhymes, Total, Little C's, Khalifa. He had some heavy hitters for the time frame. He had the Locks.
Mm-hmm. Monifa.
Puffy was all throughout the whole album.
Can we just talk about the fact that Monifa was on this album? Like, Harlem all day. She from the east side of Harlem. Monifa does not get her flowers. Right, she does not get her flowers. So I want to make sure we sprinkle some flowers in front of Monifa right now. And I like Monifa at the time, so I was just glad to see her getting light. I think that was a Diddy move, putting Harlem together. So if we talk about singers, we got to also talk about Kelly Price, who at this point in time I feel like was the faith standard. This is before the world knew Kelly Price on a couple songs, but most notably on You Want to Get This Money. She gives you that bad boy feel. It's right in pocket with what they've been doing with their singers on hooks. And then you get Billy Lawrence, which I feel like, I hate to say this, but I feel like it was a favor. I feel like it was a favor. Only other place I've heard Billy Lawrence is on Rampage, The Last Boy Scouts album, because they were label mates. Billy Lawrence, for those who don't know, I don't even know who to compare. They were trying to have the second generation of Tina Marie. She was Blue-Eyed Soul, and she was on there, ironically, after the skit called White Girl on the song Love You So, and it was off key. That's the most notable thing I remember from the Love You So hook. The fact that they're gonna take the Rolls Royce hook and put it over Square Biz, which is the Tina Marie beat, which is why they probably got the white girl singer on it, but she's singing it in a way that doesn't really go with the beat. That hook never fit with the beat. So that's what I remember about the singing on here. You have 112 singing on Cheat on You, and you also have 112 singing on the New Edition remake, Jealous Guy. And thank God for them there, because it almost seemed like Diddy and Mace were having too much fun. not being able to sing at all. It's like the joke is only as fun as how long you let the joke ride out, which is my point about the skits. All right, let's talk about the rap features. So Jay-Z, who eventually the year after this goes to have big beef with Mace, big beef. So ironic that he's featured on this album on the song Cheat on You, but he sticks to the plot. Him and Lil C's, I give them credit, they both stick to the topic. A lot of times you get rappers who feature on songs and not talking anything about what the song is about. And you'll see this on the Play Away. So Samone, you want to talk about the Play Away, A-Ball and MJG?
I mentioned it because like this is the first time you see like down south rappers on New York music. You know what I mean? We hadn't hit the Southern invasion as of yet. Like there were music that like for whatever reason it was very segregated, and you wouldn't hear any music that was down south until you actually went down south. I had never heard of them.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think for a lot of New Yorkers, these are like rappers you saw in the back of the magazines, but didn't really know. And I mentioned this on a couple albums we talked about. Right after Biggie and Tupac died, there was a big scramble from New York rappers to show and prove that they were okay with the other coast. And the West Coast rappers were doing it too. And so this was one of those. 'Cause I remember when Players Club came out, Ice Cube did a song with DMX. And Jay-Z started having Too Short on his albums. Biggie had Too Short on his last album. And so
make sure everybody, there was like an alliance here. Like we're Switzerland at this point. We don't have anything to do with this.
And Diddy wanted to, I think he's always been a fan of A-Ball and MJG, and you could tell this was a Diddy move because he wound up signing him.
I was gonna say he signed him later on in life. He signed both of them, but then I don't even know where that went at.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
It got him some of their biggest hits. We'll talk about that one day. But yeah, on this song, it seems like everybody was going in a different direction. Mace's verse is all about murder on that song, and MJG is talking about being a pimp because he's, I think he was taking the title literally, the Play Away. And 8-Ball is somewhere in the middle of both of those. So they're all just kind of all over with that song, which is over this really smooth Suave House beat by Mo Suave. I forgot to mention him in the producers. Mo Suave, which was a Suave House Records producer, which is one of the major independent black-owned labels out of Texas, but they were signing a lot of Tennessee rappers at the time. So shout out Suave House. But that was a power move, and Diddy made that clear that it was a power move because he says in the beginning of the song and the ending of the song, we stronger when we come together.
To go in about the feature list, when we was listening to it, you said because the second song was DMX, you was like that was his first biggest feature, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if Get At Me Dog was out at the time or not. But DMX's name had just started bubbling.
I think so. I think it was.
Okay. I think DMX, I think Get At Me Dog was just starting to bubble because this is the end of 97 going into 98, which is about to be DMX's year. And so ironically though, Mace uses the same sample on this album for Will They Die For You that DMX uses for Get At Me Dog. And I tried to look up articles and things that talk about the discrepancy because Dame Grease is a producer on this album, so you can tell they all work closely together. So I'm like, why would either Mace use the same sample or why would DMX use the same sample? And if it's DMX, I can see DMX being like, I don't care, I made it happen.
Exactly. Get At Me Dog beat is, even though it's the same beat, it don't sound, it's the same thing like I said with like Feel So Good, like
yeah.
I only know it because of Mace, right? I don't remember that it's sampled. You only know, you know what I mean, Get At Me Dog, but for that beat when it come in, and he rapped so hardcore on it that was just a song on the album.
Right.
And it never became a single.
It's just so crazy that they're so close to each other, and one of them could have said something. But like you said, one trumps the other. But one thing that I've heard in multiple spaces is that Lil Kim's verse kills everybody on that song. I've also heard that Lil Kim wrote Diddy's verse on that song.
Wow.
I'm not surprised.
It's hard for me.
I'm not surprised.
It's hard for me to think of Lil Kim writing.
Writing music, but Biggie taught us, so why wouldn't she be able to write it? He taught her how to write like a dude.
Can I ask you a question? Do you feel like there was too many features on this album?
I was getting heavy. I felt like we could have did without Diddy. Diddy was featured too much on this album.
That's true, yeah.
Diddy was featured a lot. Like the other features, there was like maybe like 7. Yeah. We could have dealt with those 7 features. That would have been okay. And remember, being featured on the album was crazy. Like a lot of albums had a lot of features on there. That was how you made the music, right? That's how you introduced other artists, right? However, it was the same artist that kept showing up, which was Diddy, he wasn't even an artist back then. He was supposed to be a producer and a record label owner that kept showing up. So every song, his voice was there. I can imagine him saying, "Let me get in this. I gotta get in this."
There's some that are crucial. I think all of DMX's appearances, both of his appearances, were needed. That take was yours. Just him doing it. And he didn't even put maximum effort in it. He's just kind of talking. If you want to know, we gonna make noise. It's like 4 bars, but it added so much needed grit. Because this album needed as much grit as it can get, because we knew it was gonna be pretty coming out. We knew it was gonna be sprinkly. And so for that to be like the second song you hear Mace on, and it's him and DMX, but then you get the opposite of that on songs like the one with Busta Rhymes. But we could have done without Busta on that. He didn't really do much on it. And then I talked about Billy Lawrence singing on there. That could have been anyone. And Cheat on You, I think, is hit or miss too. I understand why they did the 8-Ball and MJG feature, because they wanted to show, look, we're not beefing with the West or the South. Plus, this is also hip hop getting bigger and people starting to realize, oh, I gotta hit other markets. This can't just be a Harlem album. This has to go international, right? But 24 Hours to Live and Take What's Yours are the most necessary features on here. 24 Hours to Live, I don't want to hear that without everybody who's on it. And everybody did their thing. You get so many different perspectives of what people would have done. And you hear some black man healing. Thinly veiled between all the crime talk. I will go into the bank and rob so-and-so. And Sheik said a questionable line there. It's kind of rapey. But, we gonna let Sheik live. Because he talked about, I would make a baby. Like, what? Hold on, Sheik. What things that you could get away with in the 90s that you should not be able to get away with now, and you can't. But all of those men at some point talked about family members. Reconcile with my mother. So you hear it like therapy. The therapy rap in the midst of gangster rap. So I think that song is a very important song. But other than that, yeah, we could have done without half of the features. What y'all giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats? The features, do they help the album or hurt the album? 1, they hurt. 5, they help.
I'm gonna give it a 3.
3.
4. Even though it's too many, there's still good features.
Okay. Takes us to Dimension 7. The question of, do the weakest songs or the weakest song, does it take away from the album and weigh it down? Are there any weak songs on here?
I don't know. When we played it, I like most of the songs on here. When you played it for me for the first time.
Okay. Yeah. I would chop 5 off easily. They did not last the test of time to me. Cheat on You can go. That sounds so mid-90s rap R&B bad boy. What's the weakest song to you, Samone? What's the song you always skip back in the day?
So I only Feel So Good. I only Tell Me What You Want. I only those singles that was out like this. Those are the ones that I gravitated more to.
Got you. All right, so something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. The question is, does the weakest song tank the album, right? So do the songs that are not as popular, do they bring it down? 1 is if they bring it down. 5 is if they don't really have an effect. So between 1 and 5, what you giving it, Mo?
I'm gonna say 3. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
I thought about it. I'm gonna give it a 4. There was only one song I didn't really enjoy that much. It was Looking at Me. I didn't really like that song.
Blasphemy. All right. Okay. Something for y'all to consider on the scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. We're getting close to the home stretch here. Dimension 8, Mass Appeal. how much could you tell this album they knew that they were appealing to as many people as possible? Did they do a good job in making sure that they were going to get radio play, that they were going to get men, women, white, black? Did they do that successfully?
Well, I mean, from what you told me about Puffy and how powerful and big he was, of course they was going to get radio play. Because of how...
you can only get as much radio play as you can get. So like he tried to repeat this bad boy formula with like G-Dep. G-Dep only got 2 singles out. Mace got 4 singles with this. So you can't really do it with everybody. Then Mace had some kind of star quality. So didn't it do what it was supposed to do? I will say Puff now tapping into, in 1997, Puff tapped into what it took to take rap international. This is, I mean, he had $1 million budget videos with J-Lo dancing in it. He got it, and I felt like Mace continued it. So if it went, 97 was Biggie's album in the spring, No Way Out in the summer, and this was the fall album, he didn't mess up the rotation. The rotation continued. And I don't know what songs would have been singles besides the ones that were singles.
Wait, so out of 20 songs, you take what? It was 5 interludes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You take 5 of those out. Only 4 songs were singles.
That's a big deal because in the mid-90s, 3 singles was the standard. If you were lucky, you're lucky to get 3 videos on Rap City or Yo MTV Raps. Mace had 4. Was a single.
I want y'all to pay attention to the marketing. Let me tell you something. Diddy is international for being a marketing genius. He knows how to sell something.
Yeah, this album
he sold 4.8 million.
Yeah, this album went quadruple platinum, which was fairly regular for albums at that time for big name artists. So I think Samone has a point. Diddy, if you would have played, and I love all the Bad Boy flagship artists. I really like G-Dep. I'm a fan. But if anybody else would have got G-Dep, they wouldn't have been able to pump hits out of him like how Diddy did. Diddy can really take any rap. I say the same thing with Shine. If he would have landed on Jermaine Dupri, I don't think he could have brought out what Diddy brought out. The formula works. One factor that is in Diddy's control is also Shiny Suit era. Whether you liked it or hated it, it became something to talk about. So the first lead single feels so good. They doing the fisheye lens, the Hype Williams video, Shiny Suits. They keeping it unapologetically. They like, yeah, we know you've been making fun of us, but watch us be cool with this, right? So that's one thing, gets people talking either way. Then the thing that Diddy couldn't control, Mace's looks. For some reason, Mace was seen as a sex symbol or someone who could get women, and they played up to that. That's something they didn't try to do with G-Dep, Shine, or Black Rob because they knew they couldn't. They couldn't really get that audience like that. So with Mace, they played it up to the 10th degree. You're going to be heartthrob Mace.
Mace was handsome. Black Rob looked rough, and so did G-Dep. They looked like they scooped them off for street credibility. Like they scooped them off the street for street credibility to give Bad Boy a tougher look. Shine was attractive, but Shine was also a little bit more of on a thuggish side, but he was more appealing than.
Which makes it ironic that Mace went out his way on this album to remind you, no, I'm Murder Mace. I still do this.
Because he had probably an identity crisis because he didn't know what the hell was going on in this point.
I was speaking about 24 Hours to Live. Another thing that added to the popularity, because again, another rapper, they wouldn't have been able to get that single on regular Hot 97 rotation because it's really not a party song. It's none of that. But everyone on that song was popping, with the exception of Black Rob, because his time hadn't come yet. That was more of his introduction, continued from the No Way Out album. But the Lots were popping on the DJ Clue mixtape scene, and DMX was just the name that was buzzing in the street. So having him on, that was perfect timing. That helped. The Tell Me What You Want single, great to keep Total's name out there, but also a great summer single and a great single for the women since you're playing to that market. So I agree with most of what Samone said, that like the marketing is what drove this album, and you can tell they made it with that in mind. Like, hey, we're gonna hit this.
Diddy knows how to break artists. He knew how to break artists in. So what you were saying as far as like certain artists wouldn't have been able to make it on other labels. He know how to break an artist because he's a visionary.
Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. What y'all giving this for Mass Appeal?
I'm for Mass Appeal off the strength that he was. Mace was on 112. They dropped his own album. I'm gonna give it a 5 just because it was that appealing to us at the time because he was just so fresh. He was from Harlem. He was all from Harlem. I'm gonna give the Mass Appeal a 5.
Okay. Ramel?
Mass Appeal, like how big the album went and stuff, right?
Yeah.
5.
5.
When I look back on it, I do feel like, again, by the way it was marketed, a lot of the street dudes or like hip hop dudes, like how I was in high school, would be immediately turned off and wouldn't even get a chance to hear the album and hear the little things that Mace did in his raps to show you that he can rap. So I think they did sacrifice losing a contingent of like real hip hop fans for sales. And they succeeded. They got what they wanted. They got a lot of sales. Dimension 9, my favorite, the 3 I's. Impact, innovation, influence. How big of an impact did this album make? Did it innovate anything new? And did it influence other rappers to come? So
5.
5. So you think, what was the innovation here? What was created that wasn't in hip hop before?
Him rapping that damn slow. Nobody was rapping that slow like that. Nobody really gives him the credit for rapping that slow. He made it okay for rappers to come in rapping that slow.
Damn, you might be right, Samone, because New York prided itself on how wordy it could be. Slow rap was a Southern thing. And for Mace to come in and be like, now what the hell are you looking for? Can a young man get money anymore? That's a Southern thing. And so before
but he
50...
didn't sound like he was country though. That was the thing. He had an uptown. It was an uptown twang to it. So you could vibe to it. It gave it to you like it was like he was talking to you. He talked through the album. He was talking directly to you. Felt it. So
you might be onto something. And
it
then
was
so
very
that
innovative. You didn't have to rap fast. We wasn't from Chicago. We wasn't from down south. We was from uptown. You could rap.
That carries it into the influence conversation because I think you brought up Loon before and I brought up Fab. And it took them a long time to give Mace his credit because at first they were like, nah, I don't sound like, and then I think in later years they were like, yeah, Mace was an influence to my style. And we hear everyone's favorite, for either the right or wrong reasons nowadays, Kanye West has gone on record multiple times saying Mace was his favorite rapper of all time from this album. He even used that line, and I'm the newest member of the Rockefeller team, and I'm gonna get this, like,
he influenced the rappers behind him and the rappers that was in the running with him. He also influenced their style too. As far as getting his style, dress and clothing, all of that too. He also influenced everything. How Harlem set the tone. We were already a flashy borough.
Yeah.
But he changed the way in which we wanted to look. So I'm gonna give him 5 all the way across the board. The impact of the album and everything.
That's huge. Do y'all see?
I'm always give Mace flowers.
The impact, I remember how big this album was when it came out. Again, the impact at the time was, hey, Bad Boy will survive. Biggie's gone, but he's proven that they still have star power. Diddy's like, I can make another star. Mace is like, yeah, I'm up for the challenge. Put me in the game, coach. And he showed and proved. Women liked him. It was a massive album. It generated 4 singles. It gave DMX his first big feature on an album for 1997. And it was a good introduction to DMX's career, which wound up being a monster career too. And I'll say this, as someone, I was writing raps in high school. I wasn't thinking about being a professional rapper. But one thing that I always wanted was for someone to rep damn Harlem. And this is the era where every other borough was getting shouted out but Harlem. I mean, Wu-Tang was still big, so they were shouting out Staten Island before they would shout out Harlem. Go listen to rap records from New York in that era, or even outside of New York. They'd be like, yo, shout out to the Bronx, Brooklyn, Long Island, never Harlem. They might just say Uptown, which they blend in Bronx and Manhattan together. I'm like, nah. When Mace came, he made it clear.
We're not from the Bronx.
And it was, for better or worse, it was great that such a big pop level artist came out of Harlem because now everyone knows Harlem. And I give Cam his flowers all the time for really repping Harlem, but Mace is who put Harlem on the map for rap. People were calling Harlem Harlem World because of him. So, all right, Ramel, what you giving us for impact, innovation, influence on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats?
Everything y'all said, 5.
5. Do you see it in this generation now? You see Mace's impact and influence?
No, nobody's slow. Nobody's slow, right? To be honest with you, if the Fabio Foreign and Mace incident didn't happen, I would have never knew that Mace was the one that put Fabio Foreign on. I didn't know a lot about Mace.
Yeah.
So
Mace, he still has fingers in the game, and you know he's become a controversial figure for many reasons since this album. But you know, something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Takes us to the final dimension 10. And we talk about category 1, the overall uniqueness and timelessness. Is this a timeless album? Is it unique?
This is the only album that sounds like that. There's not another album made by any other artist that sounds like this one.
You don't think there was a bad boy formula at play here?
Hear me out.
Okay.
There's a formula to how they make their music as far as like sampling music from the 80s and all of those other generations that he sampled music from. But there's not another album that sounds like this one. Okay, No Way Out is a little different. I understand that. There's a lot of like Mace. It's a lot of Mace in there. Some of it sounds dated, but there's classic music. There's classic singles on here, which we already named them. Those 4 singles that they're classics. But
what sounds dated? Give me an example of a song that sounds dated.
The one with Busta Rhymes sounds dated. Like it doesn't sound the way music sounds now. So it doesn't feel so good. Sounds current to me for whatever reason. But some of the other music doesn't sound like it was made. It sounds like it was made a long time ago.
That's exactly what I mean when I talk about timeless. Sometimes people get stuck because of nostalgia. Like, oh, I was at my high school prom when this song dropped. I loved it, but it's like, can you really listen to it now without feeling like, forget your nostalgia? Does it last? And so I think you just hit it on the nose. There's songs on here that sound crisp. Did he use the cheat code on a lot of those big samples? Hollywood Swingin' is a timeless song. You do a timeless rap over it, now that becomes a timeless song too. But Ramel, what were you going to say about timelessness and uniqueness?
Well, listening to the album when you first played it and now listening to like albums now, yeah, there's a lot of outdated songs on there that doesn't sound like anything a lot of people from my generation would listen to. But there's songs like y'all both said that is like even my generation listen to. Feels So Good is the biggest one because that's a big time song for him.
So on a scale from 1 to 5, uniqueness and timelessness, what you giving it? 1 to 5.
Oh, me? I thought I gave my number already. I said a 5.
Oh, okay, cool. Ramel, what you giving it?
4.
4. Okay. So that concludes our category 1 breakdown and review of the classic. I'm 25 years old. We talk about Harlem World from 3 Harlem experts across generations. I had to put my nephew on the spot. He said he never heard his album. I had to introduce him to it. Shout out to Mace. Shout out to the whole Harlem. I miss y'all out there. And join us for category 2 in the next episode where we go over the rap performance, how we break down Mace's rap skills on this album. Till then, y'all know what it is. F a Rap Critic. They talk about it while I live it.